What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and this is Does It Suck, the show where we take a deep dive look at a new game and see what's good or bad about it. Today I've been playing a bunch of the Outriders demo. Now this is actually a pretty substantial chunk of the game, measuring in at about 3 hours. This has multiple classes, a ton of different guns, side quests, and main quest. It's basically a good taste as to how Outriders is going to play at launch, and to be perfectly just brutally honest, I'm not impressed. Outriders is a game that manages to be very, very bright at times and have some cool explosions and spell effects, but is relatively boring. Now on the surface, this is a typical looter shooter, which I've played a lot of, everything from Borderlands to Destiny, and typically what makes a looter shooter successful is some very tight controls. This is definitely the backbone of how they work. If everybody enjoys pulling the trigger, then of course you're going to keep logging in, you're going to keep trying to farm that next big weapon, and you're going to have a blast. Outriders never manages to really get to the fun because the moment-to-moment action is just so flat and frankly uninspired. But let's start things off by breaking down the setting itself, because this is clearly what's supposed to be part of the motivation. Now Outriders of course is going to be a games as a service project, so I'm sure there's going to be a million updates and patches and all sorts of crazy like that, and this is focused on multiplayer, but during the course of this demo, as of now, the matchmaking is broken. In fact, I waited over an hour at one point to try and do a single multiplayer game, and flat out no matches are available. But I decided to run around and try and test things out and see things in this world. So this is an alien planet. Earth is destroyed. There's been some sort of mysterious cataclysmic event that's managed to wipe out 99% of humanity. We're playing as the final survivors who have managed to launch themselves into space on this last-ditch effort, Noah's Ark, basically landing on a far-off rock. And now we've landed here, and it turns out that this planet itself is also incredibly dangerous. It's managed to inflict a bunch of people with this weird chaotic ability. Some people died, some people are basically deleted, and some people randomly get super abilities. Now this is kind of just the excuse for why we get to have magic when it's a seemingly normal future. Now this concept for a setting is in fact a bit unique. I kind of appreciate the idea of this like post-apocalyptic look at humanity, but one that's not just done in burned out cities or the typical stuff you see. But the issue with it is that there's not really a cool sense to it. We feel so disconnected, and in fact our character itself is so disconnected from it. So you get to make your own custom hero and pick your own class, but he's just such a jerk. Like constantly people are being mowed down, ripped apart, blown up, and you sound so bored. Like no matter how freaking awful things get, your guy's like, hey Red, look at me, I'm such a cool dude. Any tiny slice of tension that they manage to establish at any moment is just instantly liquidated. But let's talk about the gameplay. The story sucks, the setting is very boring, but let's talk about the combat, right? Because that's what matters most. Well, in this, you have super abilities. At the beginning of this, when you get imbued with your special gifts, you get a chance to choose a specific class. Now these are your stereotypical RPG styles, things like tanks, ranged, supports, but they're basically broken down as elemental types. Do you want to be able to explode people with fire, set off ice, or electrocute people, or freeze people? Now, each of these is interesting. I think the idea of like elemental types as classes is pretty unique. And additionally, these abilities very much range in how they're accessible. These are things like defensive abilities, being able to make a shield of raw rock, or being able to slow down time in a small bubble so you can take people out much more efficiently or protect your teammates. There is a very smart sense of balance in here that shows that there is like a lot of forethought. There's a lot of like timing and planning that clearly went into this phase of the game itself. But the problem is that I feel like we're way too strong. So something that very much ruins this experience for me is that whenever you're running around on missions is when you start picking up your weaponry, stuff like shotguns, sniper rifles, assault rifles, you know, the typical stuff you see. But here's the issue I have with it is that all we're fighting is random dudes, and we're just so powerful. Like, you're fighting against random guys who are stuck on this planet, who are probably malnourished. It's so easy to mow them down. Even on some of the hardest difficulties, which I want to talk more in depth about in a minute here, it's just so easy to explode people 20 at a time. Like my specific guy, his special ability is that I get healed by dealing damage, so I could pretty much run straight into an enemy base on the highest difficulty and start getting shotgun headshots shots and being healed faster than they could deal the damage. And it's not that these guys are super weak, it's just that I'm freaking RoboCop. I'm a god. I can teleport, I can explode, I can punch somebody so hard it freezes them solid and they shatter. Like, it is insane to me that they think that this is somehow balanced. I feel like we need more super enemies. Occasionally you do run into people that have your abilities, like bad guys that have magic, but they die incredibly quick anyways. Like, if I shoot some poison bullets or I unleash one of my own specials, it's so easy to put these guys down. And additionally, your special abilities practically recharge instantly. Like, the developers have said that the point of this is to make it where you're not constantly saving up your specials, but it feels weird that I can just constantly explode people, throw grenades, detonate everything around me, and it's just such an overly simplistic manner. There's such a painful power scale difference between us and our enemies, and it kind of makes me wish that we had aliens or something. Like, the fact that we're on this alien planet, but I'm not getting a chance to fight monsters or big old beasties or something that has like kinetic skin that's immune to my magic. Like, it's just way too simple. But I do want to talk about the difficulty in this, because I think that this is an interesting concept that they did kind of rip off of other shooters, but I still think works. So basically this has the world scale difficulty system. So basically, the better you're doing, everything levels up. You level up, you get additional skills, you get extra magic and stuff, you get talent points and stuff like that, but the world levels up to become more difficult. Now this is optional, it's something you can turn off. You could keep it on easy mode forever and never level up if you choose to be, but I wanted to see what it would do. It feels like the game itself is trying to tune itself to be the perfect difficulty for you. Since I was easily able to just mow down everybody in my path, the game kept increasing the difficulty bit by bit, and this does two separate things. It gives you better loot, and it also increases the challenge. It increases the rate at which you level up. Now they straight up copied this from Diablo 3. I love this system, it's very cool, but I mean, even the meters itself look like how Diablo 3 did it. But I don't consider that a detriment. I think this idea of difficulty that tries to match your experience is a good concept. It's something that's going to make it where you never have a chance to get placated by ease. You're constantly able to tune this experience to be as tough or as simple as you desire. Now, I'm sure there's going to be at least one person in the comments who's trying to say that, oh my gosh, you're being too harsh on this demo. Well, here's the thing. This is a big slice of the game itself, and it's coming out relatively soon. So if the game is managing to be this paper thin, this lackluster, and this kind of unfinished in its assets, I don't have a lot of hope for the game itself. This is an always online experience. This is something that's clearly going to be based on having multiplayer servers and that fun of beating things with your friends. I don't have a lot of hope for it as of yet. I'm going to keep an open mind. I will review the game itself when it comes out eventually, but as of now, I'm definitely not exactly hyped for it. But what do you think? Have you had a chance to install this free demo? And if you have, what are some of your thoughts? What's the good and bad in your opinion? Tell me in the comments down below, and please, if you haven't already, be sure to give this video a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all, and keep dreaming. I still can't believe that the matchmaking is broken on this. Like, you have a multiplayer game, and day one, I can't do the multiplayer. Like, ooh, that is not a good look, bro. Maybe repair your demo a little bit better next time you're going to drop one. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, you know, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.